Go.
You just boarded an American Airlines flight headed to Phoenix, Arizona for your cousin's wedding. Now, this particular cousin is Miss Drama Queen USA, and you can't believe someone's actually marrying her. As you ponder this wonder of nature, your plane begins to take off and begins its ascent into the air. Wonder over the fact that someone's marrying your cousin is replaced with wonder that your 800,000-pound airplane could actually stay up in the sky. You can't imagine how that could possibly be. Well, knowledge is power, and when you know how things work, you not only satisfy curiosity, but you also reduce anxiety. In preparing for the speech, I met with lots of people who were very, very anxious about flying, very, very nervous, and one of the reasons why, in fact the main reason, was that they just didn't know what was happening. But when you understand what's happening around you, you reduce anxiety. And with spring break coming up and travel plans in place that may include flying, that could be very, very helpful. So, I'm going to educate you now. Being married to a pilot and having taken lessons myself, I can tell you that there are 4 forces acting on an airplane to get it up in there and keep it there. Thrust, drag, lift, and gravity. Starting with thrust. Thrust is the power that engines create. According to Boeing, the company that manufactured your 747, your plane has 4 massive engines. They create enough power to push your 800,000-pound airplane forward. Okay? Think about a balloon. Let's say I blow up a balloon and I don't tie off the end. I release the balloon and what's it gonna do? It's gonna fly off into the air, right? That's thrust. Same thing with your airplane. Alright, so we've got the thrust going on. Now that brings us to the second force of flight, drag. Drag occurs when an object displaces the air. Think about riding in a car and sticking your hand out the window, and the wind's going to push your hand back. The faster you're going, the faster it's going to push, right? And the harder it is to resist. Yeah? The same thing with an airplane. In order for your plane to become airborne, the thrust has to be greater than the drag. So one of the pilot's jobs is to reduce drag. Objects that are sticking out of the plane increase drag, which is why shortly after takeoff your pilot retracts the landing gear. Sometimes you can even hear it. It sounds like a kind of a metal noise, and sometimes it's kind of squeaky. That's what's happening. Your plane's not falling apart. Your pilot is retracting the landing gear to reduce the drag. Okay? So we've got thrust, we've got drag, and that brings us to the third force of flight, lift. Lift is the force that you obtain when air molecules rush over and under the wings. In order to demonstrate that, I need to introduce you to my friend, Mr. Air Molecule Maximus III. Mr. Maximus has lots of friends, and they're very needy, and they're very codependent, and they like to be together. When it's cold, they're really tightly packed together. When it's warm, they're a little spaced further apart, but they always want to come back together. Well, Boeing knew this, and they designed your wings with that in mind. They designed it with something called camber, which is a curvature in the wings. This is a cross-section of the airplane wing here. Can you see how it's curved? That is camber. Now, the molecule friends are going to rush over and under the wings to get back together again. They have further to go on the top, so they have to move faster. Fast-moving air creates low pressure. They don't have to move as fast on the bottom. They don't have that far to go. So they move a little slower. That creates high pressure. That high pressure is pushing up against the wings to keep it up into the air. So you've got lift, you've got an airborne plane, right? Very good for us. But there's one more force to contend with, gravity. According to Jefferson's Aviation Fundamentals, your plane has a center of gravity, and your pilot has to keep that in mind before and during the flight. During the flight, he or she is constantly making adjustments to keep that gravity centered out. But now, before, you've got to think about the baggage, you've got to think about the passengers, and you've got to think about the gas, which is located in the wings, for those of you who don't know where that is. So, here's the way that works. You've got the airplane, and it's got its little center of gravity. If you have too much weight in front of the center of gravity, what's going to happen?
Go to the big house.
Yeah, go into the house. You got it. Go into the big house. Right? There's too much weight on the back of the airplane. What's going to happen?
It's going to stall out.
It's going to stall out. Right, like a car going up a hill and you don't give it enough gas, enough power, eventually it's going to stall and you go into the house. So, pilot has to keep that in balance the entire time. So let's say you're a flight attendant and all your customers want to sit in the front of the plane. No one wants to be in back by the stinky bathrooms. What do you tell them?
Nope.
No can do, Mr. Customer. Have a nice day. No. Sometimes the customer is not always right. Okay. So, to recap, we've got 4 forces acting on an airplane to get it up into the air and to keep it there. Thrust, drag, lift, and gravity. And once you have all those 4 forces in perfect balance, you can expect a smooth flight. Now, a smooth marriage for your cousin and the groom-to-be? I don't think so. But as for you, have a safe trip and happy flying.